Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Quick Draw. It's me, Mike, your host, broadcasting live with a very exciting guest today. With me is my co-host, John, at Kamuri Hiryoku. If you're not following him, you're missing out, especially when he puts on his interesting little titles. We've got a very exciting show for you tonight. I've been really stoked about this. I had to kind of keep it quiet, but with us is TJ McCormack. TJ, you are a GOP communication strategist, correct?
Yes, I am. I am a communications specialist, a strategist, a lover of all things conservative and small government. Yeah, that's me.
And a survivor of the LA minefield.
Yes. The People's Republic of California. I'm a dissident. I got out.
Well, we're glad you survived that. So with us tonight, TJ, you're here to talk to us a little bit about the Federalist Party of America. Yeah. It's an up-and-coming third party. John and I are very familiar with them. We've worked with them in the past. We're really excited to have you here kind of representing them because I think a lot of people are – this is a rare opportunity for a third party, I think, since Trump's election. I think there was a lot of – upset with the choice in candidates. I know John and I, we both voted third-party candidate. We actually know a lot of people that held their nose for Trump. So why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown? What is the Federalist Party of America, and what are some of their platforms, and what kind of separates them from the pack?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's very cool to be out here talking about this, and you know, for me, it's an organic thing. I happen to be dear friends with the current chairman pro tem of the Federalist Party of America, Bill O'Reilly. And if he was sitting here, he'd say, "Not that Bill O'Reilly." He's William F.B. O'Reilly, and he is a man with unbelievable credentials, and also from the same field and the same party. Well, he's a conservative party member here in New York. But anyway, I got to know this movement through Bill by osmosis. Bit by bit, he told me that what he had discovered and the people that he had met in the party, and all of it rings true for me. I mean, just to start with the notion of things like term limits and decreasing the debt and changing the culture of Washington, and not in the jingoistic bumper sticker version of change the culture, like drain the swamp, but rather actually change how government is perceived from Washington on down, or rather, better, from your own backyard on up, if that makes any sense. Things like let's start with something like term limits, for example. It's not term limits for the sake of term limits, and it's not the idea of just trying to weed out career politicians, which is a bumper sticker in and of itself. It's about the idea that if we're going to turn anything around, we just have to first and foremost just eliminate this notion that someone's going to get there and become entrenched and start doling out the dough through the form of grants from Congress, for example. And become a part of the problem and a part of this revolving door, if that makes any sense. And by the way, I think every once in a while you may find like just now, you may find me, you may hear me trying to find my footing. It's because I'm new to the party. I've been around it for some time on the periphery, but a hands-on person out here discussing it, every once in a while I have to find the right words, because some of these concepts are a bit of a new pond to dip your toe in. And also this is a party for people who think. It's a party for people who, again, it comes to policy, for example, when it comes to policy, instead of thinking right away, is it right? Is it wrong? Is it up? Is it down? It's the first thing you think about when it comes to policy, for example, in a public debate. The first word you should think of is where. At which level of government should we or should we not do law A, B, or C? Okay, I gave you one big exhale there. So
breathe, my friend, breathe. Well, so, I think you bring up an interesting point about policy and the different levels of government, because I think one of the big problems, and this is actually, I don't think people realize how much it contributes to the toxicity between the two major parties, is this idea that the federal government's supposed to solve all these social issues, gay marriage, the drug war. What are some other ones? Abortion. Like those are important issues to people who want to discuss them, and whether you're educated about them or not, people have strong opinions about them. But we keep putting the onus on Washington, D.C. to fix these issues and to resolve them in a way that makes everybody happy, when half the country is divided one way or the other. Whereas if you let the states figure it out. If the states have laws on abortion, you're going to have 50 different laws on abortion. Okay, that's fine. You're going to have 50 different laws on gay marriage. Okay, that's fine. Some states are going to say weed is okay and heroin's not. Some states are going to say, hey, let's have a drug free for all. Let's bring back the 60s. Woo!
It's sort of like because there have been elections. Because then it all comes every 4 years we're fighting over the White House. This is basically what politics is boiled down to at this point, where all we're doing is fighting over the White House. Nobody's turning out. Like, I know here where I am in Michigan, when it comes to local elections, nobody turns out for them. Nobody even cares who's getting voted to the city council, to the school boards. Nobody cares. All anyone cares about is when's the next presidential election, maybe gubernatorial. But beyond that, all they care about is who's going to the White House. And so it's just a 4-year fight constantly about White House, presidency. And it's like, okay, but the president is not there to do everything.
Right, and you think about the co-equal branch of government there. You think about Congress, and it's absolutely dumbfounding how Congress as a body has what would it have been this week? 8% approval rating, 11% approval rate, but everybody loves their guy or their girl. Everybody loves their representative. Meanwhile, when you take them en masse, everybody hates the entity, and with good reason. And by the way, what you're saying there, that's exactly how Washington wants it. Washington is full of people who get there, Republicans and Democrats and, liberals and conservatives, and they get there. Think about it. First of all, is it supposed to be, is public service of a vocation, or is it a lifelong paid vacation? These people, and granted, some of them might start, on a virtuous foot, and want to get there and be Mr. or Ms. Smith, go to Washington. But
until they get there,
when they get there, I mean, imagine this. Imagine you're Joe Schmo lawyer, or Joe Schmo pharmacist or farmer, or communications specialist. And you get there, and I don't know if you've been in those office buildings there, the Longworth office building and the other one. You walk in and wow, look at it. You get your name on a big plaque outside your office, and then you walk in and you got a waiting room over here. You got a staff over there. There's a little bar and a secret drawer over here, and people come in and they pray. You get in, and the last thing you want to do is get out. And so what you do is you get into that little rocking chair, you bring home some bread, you bring home some pork, as much as possible. Some of these federal grants, that we were talking about. And the idea is stay below the radar, don't rock the boat. and you're golden because of your exact point. You have an apathetic
Cory Gardner,
right? You have an apathetic electorate back home who may or may not show up for the next election 2 or 6 years down the road. And you're golden. You're good. You're in.
And you and John bring up a good point too, because I think, you know, everyone complains about the corruption in DC. Everyone complains about the culture and the toxicity in DC. But for example, the disaster in Flint, Michigan, which was, you know, it wasn't just like, oops, we screwed up and there's lead in the water. No, there was actual corruption. There was actual conspiracy to like basically screw over the people of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And nobody knew about it because everybody was so busy. Like, John, to your point, everyone was so busy fighting over the White House and then going back to sleep for 4 years. Yeah. Whereas if we had this more engaged polity, then maybe stuff like that wouldn't happen. I mean, even in my state currently, in Colorado, you had the as I can't remember the name of it, it's the Aminus River, that turned orange thanks to the EPA. Mm. And it's funny how few people know about that, especially the people clamoring for more environmental regulation or freaking out over Trump's deregulation. It's like, guys, the EPA turned the river orange, okay?
There you go. Perfect
they hate
example.
Trump.
They
hate Trump for his color, but they made it the same color, the river. So, but
I know it looked like Willy Wonka's chocolate river. You expect Augustus Gloop is over there slurping with his hand. Augusta, sweetheart. You know, that is the perfect entree to one of the absolute platforms, one of the building blocks of the Federalist Party of America, and that is we believe that the best government is the government that's closest to the people. All right. I mean, you could not get any more straight to the heart of the Federalist Party of America. And by the way, at any point while we're talking about this, you go to federalistpartyofamerica.org, federalistpartyofamerica.org. And by the way, we are in this early stages. It's actually a great time. I used the word organic earlier, and I may use it about 9 times before we're done. This is such a wonderful time to get in and take a look around. Democrat, Republican, you know, independent, anybody is free to join. And that's the thing too. We're not a ballot party right now. We're not seeking ballot status at the moment. This way, people can keep their political affiliation and come in and, you know, and kick the tires, drive this thing around a little bit and see how they like it. And by the way, I wouldn't be doing my duty if I didn't also mention that if you go ahead and it's very user friendly, it's very, very, very user friendly type party as well. If you text Fed Party, okay, to 53445, 53445, you text Fed Party, all one word, and you're going to automatically get text updates on what's going on with the Federalist Party of America. Anyway, that all that being said, what you just mentioned about that unpronounceable Orange River in Colorado, the EPA, okay, using that as an example, the EPA does what it does from Washington, D.C. Yes, they have their local affiliates around, but you have this overreaching, know-it-all federal government, a bunch of people who don't know Boulder from who don't know Boulder from Park City, from South Park. They don't know any of these places. They don't know what your street looks like, let alone your whole neck of the woods. And yet they by overreaching long arms from Washington are going to dictate what happens in your backyard, just like the Department of Education. I mean, if anything is not one size fits all, it's education. It's school districts and neighborhoods and towns and so anyway, again, I can go off on these tangents, and forgive me when I do that. But you just flipped the switch when you.
This is a very ADD show, so don't worry about it.
One thing I will bring up is this, because we had this conversation before on the group call, where the Federalist Party's job and its tasks are they're somewhat Herculean. The reason why I say that is because one of the things we're talking about was how the Federalist Party's goal is to appeal to everybody. That it's supposed to be that if you've got a state full of leftists should feel at home in the Federalist Party because their state can be as leftist as they want. But at the same time, I feel like you have to field like two different areas, because on the one hand, the very idea of federalism is something really only conservatives will want or really understand the value of. Yet it's leftists who will benefit from it in many ways. But yet they're the ones who will fight it too. So it's like,
well, but at the same time, look at what's going on in California. You know, I'll just jump there. I could be completely factually incorrect. And right now, Bill O'Reilly and the rest of the bigwigs. And by the way, we do wear powdered wigs at any opportunity.
Yeah, nobody told me that was this kind of party. So I
Federalist Party.
Left my wig at home. So
it's sort of a political, like, eyes wide shut party. Where it's just
God,
the whole notion of states' rights is just so hot.
Loaders too? Anyway.
But I mean, you know, if
it's political porn for us,
I'm hoping that I'm going down the right road here. And you see, again, here you go. You went there, and I'm thinking, wow, look at what California is doing. California is telling the president, don't come here. California there's a secession movement throughout California, and you know what they want to do? They want to shut out the rest of the country. They want to sit there and be their own sixth largest economy in the world with their own federal response to immigration. They're going to sit there with the nation's highest debt, the nation's highest unemployment rate, and the highest illegal immigration rate, the highest taxes. It's what they want. Honestly, so right there, that might be an example of a bunch of leftists,
right?
A bunch of big government leftists.
And I think a lot of conservatives would say, hey, if California wants to bankrupt itself into oblivion, as long as I don't have to pay, as long as Colorado doesn't have to pay, as long as Texas doesn't have to pay. But I think John kind of touches an interesting point. How do you sell that to the left, who is very much Leviathan, big central government? We want Washington to control everything. We don't want 50 different laws on a topic. Like what is the Federalist Party strategy to kind of unifying the country or selling that concept of federalism to the country?
You know, I honestly, I think for me personally, that's something that I'm still starting to understand. If I understand the platforms and the materials that I've read at the website at the FederalistPartyOfAmerica.org, I would say that really it's pretty much what I said. It's about talking about going. Put it this way. The basics about how you form a local party chapter is literally just getting together and if reading the Federalist Papers or the anti-Federalist Papers, quite frankly, anything to gin up the conversation and get it going. I just think that honestly, this might be the time that leftists see this Herculean government for what it is for their purposes. I mean, if they're pushing back and they're punching back, quite frankly, and between Antifa and the rest of them, these hard left groups, let alone the mindless sheep of the left electorate in California and Oregon, et cetera,
and New York.
They're looking at this Herculean, massive Leviathan government as being egregious right now,
Well, especially now that Trump's in charge.
Right.
Like,
and so if
anything, wait, we changed our mind. We don't want big government. Sorry, psych, just kidding. LOL.
Or they want a big state government, quite frankly. Maybe they still have these grand plans. Hey, look what's going around, like here in New York. You've got a movement afoot for single payer health care here in New York, coming from Albany. That's a movement that is actually I'm working with a man, a Republican state senator who's up for re-election. I'm working with him, and his opponent, if it ends up being this guy, he's running on a platform of single payer. So really, it's, you know, big government's going to be big government. You know, a state like California, you know, coming out of Sacramento, they can have a pretty damn big government. You know, they already do. I mean, again, look at those numbers we just ran through. So, you know, yes, look, obviously it's a tough sell, but boy, if the iron has ever been hot to turn a leftist against Washington, D.C., it's now.
Well, and also it was something Dave Rubin was pointing out. This is like the year of strange alliances, because the left has gone so completely insane. There are actually people on the left saying, okay, I'm a leftist, but I'm not that. And so it's possible you could get those, because you could try maybe to emphasize the idea that, you know, there are people on the left, I think, that are just beyond help. You can't deal with them, you know, the Antifa types, things like that. But there are many.
You just got to drag them to it. Just follow.
Yeah, you got
drag them to it.
Sure, and look, and even just through the lens of the word we heard a lot in 16, the establishment. Look at all those Bernie supporters. Look at all those Bernie supporters who were absolutely robbed. They were robbed. I mean, you know, it's all jumped the shark, you know, I mean, it really has. They were absolutely, you know, people every time we get into the whole, you know, Russia collusion and Russia interfering and, you know what, I always think, I expect Russia to do that. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying you don't shock me when you tell me that the other superpower in the world is doing everything it can to mess with our elections. That I would think they would try to swing an election. What did happen, though, we know for sure, was that the DNC actually meddled and swung an election. And there were millions of Bernie supporters who got absolutely robbed. So look, you know, look at them, and I bet you, I tell you what, I bet you that crew is ripe for the picking for the Federalist Party of America. You know, honestly,
I think you bring up a good point too, because a lot of those people, my observation with like some of the Bernies, especially the millennial types, is they like Bernie. Yeah. Because he actually does, I think, identify some of the problems with government as far as corporate welfare and cronyism. The only problem is the solution is socialism, and that's not going to fix the problem. But if the Federalist Party and conservatives can say, no, wait, guys, we agree on we assess the problem the same way he does. We see the same problems. We don't want cronyism. We don't want corporate welfare. We don't want the government bailing out these companies.
Right.
But bigger government's going to make it worse. In fact, we actually, John and I, we wrote an article about that not too long ago during the 2016 election that we made that very point. Like, dear Bernie Sanders millennials, bigger government is only going to make the problems you hate worse. Right. You're going to give government more control. And who do you think they're going to listen to? Are they going to listen to you, me, Joe Schmo? No, we don't have any money. We don't have any power. We don't have any pull. Who are they going to listen to? They're going to listen to big corporations that have lots of money and can afford lobbyists. Like I work for a Fortune 20 company. And I've looked around like internally for jobs that they hired. They hire lobbyists. They actually post internally. Like, we need someone who has like 10 years experience working with Democrats, who can lobby and do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's pretty bold-faced. Like, I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah. It's and you know, I mean, government picking winners and losers, you know, with their federal grants and with their tax incentives and all of these things. You know, it does fly in the face of the Bernies, you know, and by the way, too, you know, it's another thing to do. There was something else that, you know, you actually heard conservative Republicans who were, you know, never Trumpers, who were saying, look, there's one serious person in this race, and that's Bernie. You actually had Republicans saying, if I'm not going to do a write-in, not a lot of them, but there were some going, at least this guy, you know, kind of walks the walk a little bit. This guy seems to have some integrity. I think that was more never ever. That was
really quickly.
That was more
except for the three mansions that he owns. Like,
yeah, exactly. We have now, of course, come to realize this guy drives a Bentley to his socialist meetings. You know, but anyway, you know, and of course, a lot of that Bernie stuff was also from never, ever, ever Hillary's, you know.
Right.
You know, that was also understandable. People found Bernie, you know, there were Republicans who found Bernie a lot more palatable than any Clinton, which put me in that category to an extent.
I think a big steaming turd is probably more appealing than.
Oh, honestly, I gotta say, yeah. Did you see that video of Hillary slipping down the steps twice in India? Yeah. Did you see that?
I watched the video too of her blasting about roughly a third of the country.
The stupid women in America.
I'm like, and it's what was bizarre to me because I watched the video. And anyone who says that she didn't say these things either didn't watch the video or is mentally impaired, because she did say, guys, I didn't just get the popular vote, I got the best part of the popular vote. I got the 2/3 that are, I got 2/3 of the GDP. I've got the people that were moving forward and optimistic. And so basically she was crapping on all the people that voted for Trump as poor, uneducated, sexist, racist, bigoted. I'm like, that's not how you make friends and influence people. Like you're not going to win any elections doing that.
Although I'm happy for the Democrats to keep doing this because, quite frankly, it helps. If they go,
we love seeing the mask come off. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm happy because almost every move. I mean, if you look at every move, and again, to tie it back to the Federalist Party, this is actually helpful in a sense because they're getting so crazy. I mean, everything. Look at the gun control stuff that's happening right now. I mean, just go totally nuts. You look at the abortion movement.
We don't want to take your guns. We should repeal the Second Amendment.
Yeah, they get worse every day. The abortion movement gets worse every day. Every leftist cause has gone completely off the deep end. And I think, and some leftists are saying, okay, I'm a leftist, but not. I mean, Dave Rubin said that. You know, I'm a leftist, but not like that. You know?
Well, because they know that that's a problem. These establishment, basic left wingers, you know, who were certainly a little emboldened by the Obama years. You know, this lunatic comes in, somebody like Nancy Pelosi, who always, would pull her punches, and guys like Biden, who were just, go along to get along, big labor type Democrats, here comes this absolute statist, this guy who, was, as far as I was concerned, this guy was no. This guy, look, I didn't think people say, you think he's a Muslim? And I don't think he's a Muslim. This guy's a secular humanist. This guy, one of the worst. You want to see Barack Obama look uncomfortable? Watch video of him saying, "Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." He said that with as much, sincerity as, Anyway, the thing is that some of these leftists, the far lefties who have come in, here in New York, we had a blue wave take out here in Westchester County, a fella that I work for, a man by the name of Rob Astorino, who is a very principled guy, an amazing communicator, arguably the best GOP communicator in the country, ran for governor a few years ago, gave Andrew Cuomo nightmares, came up short, mainly because of disingenuous Republicans who left him at the altar in terms of support. Anyway, Rob, I worked for Rob, and I would work for him again. I'd walk over glass to work for him again. Rob got swept out by double-digit points here in Westchester County as county executive. He got swept out in a blue wave. And the fellow who won is a 30-something-year career politician, an empty suit, a vapid windbag of a guy, who now is sitting atop a massive majority in the county legislature. And one of the first things that this guy had to deal with was the fact that underneath, or rather next to him in the co-equal, the Board of Legislators in Westchester County, about 3 or 4 of them were these crazy indivisible types. I don't know if you've heard about this indivisible movement out there. They came in, these Johnny and Jane come-latelys, who have no experience other than, showing up with placards and just, screaming and ranting and raving. And now they're county legislators. And this guy knows, holy God, I got to distance myself from these lunatics. These lunatics want to, they want to run the asylum, and he knows that. And so again, the time is right to get at some of these Democrats and these liberals and rhinos and you know, I actually, something occurred to me a moment ago, and I just want to make a distinction here too. The Federalist Party of America isn't so much an anti-Washington party as much as it is a pro-local government concept. You know,
fair assessment.
And perhaps the Federalist Party of America is positioned ideally, for example, when it comes to, we haven't talked about education, about schools. Almost every locality in America is suffering under the crushing impact of Common Core and other standardized curriculum like it. And that's the sort of thing that emanates out of either a place like the Department of Education in Washington, or some of the education departments that are based in a lot of the state capitals around the country. And now with the school safety issue, and which, yes, is a 2A issue, a gun rights issue or a gun control issue, that's a conversation that, people who are freaked out by the NRA's grip over Washington, would a lot of people think that the NRA has a vice grip on their local town board or their local school board? You know what? That might be an in. That very well could be a little in for the Federalist Party of America.org.
Right.
And again, now, by the way, that right there, I'm sort of spitballing that as I'm saying it. That I'm not throwing that at you guys as by rote here from my notes. I mean, this is actually kind of occurring to me as we speak. That makes this. Go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish your thought. What
I'm saying is, I think it's another way to make the case that this is a pro-local government thing, and this, take the gun thing out of it, but school safety is a lot of people. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody that thinks that Washington knows best about their local school.
Right. Okay. So I want to shift gears a little bit, because I have a really good question from Gray Wolves in the chat here. So I want to introduce this question first by pointing out. So the Federalist Party has seen enormous success at the grassroots level because of social media, especially like Twitter. But what we're seeing a lot of with social media, Twitter, Facebook, Google, even YouTube, is really just an onslaught of censorship, of silencing dissenting voices. Has the Federalist Party of America kind of seen or been a victim of that at all? And if yes or no, what do you or what do the Federalist Party of America think should be done about that, if anything?
I think the Federalist Party of America is like any other movement. We just want a fair shake, and we just, we want everybody to play fair, obviously. I'll be honest, to just be completely honest, my experience with the social media aspect of the Federalist Party of America has been an unbelievably, as you mentioned, loyal following. And I think that this is look, everything old is new again. Okay. I mean, again, I mentioned, powdered wigs. I mean, this is something we're literally blowing the dust off of what this country was founded upon. Right. And it just goes to show you how far we've gotten, how unfamiliar so many people are, especially leftists. This has been like, ever since, they took down Nixon, this has been like a 40, 50-year liberal bacchanal where they've just lost total grip on reality. I don't think they see us coming, quite frankly. It's hard to really get a handle on something that's and to find problems with and angles to take shots at a movement that really is so pure in its endeavor. This is they really mean it. We really mean it. This is about you looking out your decisions on your life in terms of policy. If you're a member of the Federalist Party of America, you start by simply looking out your backyard, looking out your window and seeing your neighbor's house and thinking, this is going to affect me and my square footage, and Larry over here and Joanne there, and the Simpsons around the corner, and emanating outward. And really and talk about an all-inclusive, a big tent. I mean, good Lord, this is the Superdome of tents. So anyway, I guess that's a long way of saying, I don't know if there's a whole heck of a lot that people can really find wrong. I'm sure there's a Russian bot out there that's programmed to hate, local government, that Sergey right now is ready to unleash on the Federalist Party of America. But,
and I think, to your point, that's one of the things that I've always loved about the Federalist Party of America is the way it gives ordinary people a voice. I know I have seen some people that I've introduced to the Federalist Party of America actually take a role in writing publications, in speaking out, in organizing local chapters. These are regular people. These are not political operatives. These are not people that went into political science or have a history or career in politics. They, one of my friends, she has experience as a circus performer, which I guess kind of gives her some experience with Congress. But I mean, like these are ordinary, everyday, and yet at the same time, extraordinary people that are finally being given a voice. My big concern, I guess, would be, if you guys and when you guys do get prominent and you start getting attention, what government, does the Federalist Party recommend any government policies for kind of making sure that Google and Twitter and the Facebooks of the country give you guys that fair shake? And bonus points if you can answer that question with a Goodfellas impression.
Well, it's impossible for me to do Goodfellas without cursing, and because I do Tommy. I do.
We can do Charlie Wrangle. We have it in Good Authority in the live chat that you do an amazing Charlie Wrangle too.
Listen, you boys. Back in the day, look, I was in Korea. I was the one black guy in Korea. People don't. I was the one black soldier in Korea. Little known fact, they had me drive the bus and made me sit in the back of it at the same time. Only back then could that have happened, and I suffered through that kind of disgrace. But it's look, these guys, these Federalists, I just want a fair shake. Anyway, no,
bravo, my friend.
What the hell was the question?
So you mentioned giving the Federalist Party of America, and I think that would extend to all Americans of every political stripe, giving us a fair shake on media platforms like Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. What policies, if any, should we implement?
Honestly, you know what? That'll be the first one that I'll say is a little above my pay grade. / I don't know if we've gotten there yet. And I'm literally just going to plead ignorant to that. I'm not going to pretend to know the answer to that question. Other than to say, see, right there we're different. Right now, a Democrat or an establishment Republican would be handing you a load of garbage. I'm sitting here going, I really don't know. But actually,
sometimes it's the best answer. Like, look, I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy.
It's yeah, exactly. You'd never hear Charlie say, "I don't know," unless you were asking him about his taxes. Then he'd say, "I don't know." But you know what? Actually, inherent, in the way that we've structured this is, at the Federalist Party of America right now. I mentioned Bill O'Reilly, William F.B. O'Reilly. Bill is the chairman pro tem of the Federalist Party of America, and it's a 1-year term, and that means that really pretty much you can almost say that every chairman, every national chairman of the party is going to be pro tem in the sense, because they're all going to have 1-year terms. And so in terms of once we eventually decide to go and try to get ballot status, that'll be a leap. And the whole thing is, actually, to speak to your point, is that what we're trying to do right now is, in this first year, and we're brand new, we're just a few months old, really, as a party rolling out, is we're trying to create some real strict rules and safeguards for the future leaders of the party. We want to make sure that we can get out in front and understand human nature at its core, and that's the core of because human nature is the core at the core of federalism, and so we have to establish, as we go forward with some of these baby steps, establish rules that's why we're kind of doing this sort of test drive, kick the tires type of rollout here, where people can text Fed Party to 53445 and do it like I did it, and just join. Again, I'm a registered Republican, and I do work for Republican candidates, and in public affairs, and yet I am a member of the Federalist Party. This is for first timers too. This is great for first timers. It's ideal for anybody who's slightly, what's the word I'm looking for? Somebody who's feeling left out, somebody who's feeling alienated, left at the altar. For every Republican who's ever voted for a Republican to get to Washington, to finally cut taxes, and to finally either bring an end to the IRS or bring an end to the Department of Education, for example. They send George W. Bush to Washington, ready to knock down the Department of Education. He ends up getting in bed with Teddy Kennedy, which is safer than getting into a car with Teddy Kennedy. Right. But he gets into bed with the Kennedy, and the Department of Education grows under people who feel left at the altar by their party can come in here and think about how local government, no pun intended, trumps Washington, in terms of having their own best interest at heart, And I do think, the more we talk about it, it is a tougher sell for the left, but this, I think the timing's right.
Especially if you give them something they want. I was going to say that one thing also, and I don't know that you know anything about this, so I won't press you for it, but I was wondering, because I know that you're not at ballot status yet, but one thing I really liked about the strategy that I originally read was that the Federalist Party was not going to waste time with stopper candidates, just throwing out candidates, sacrificial lambs to the slaughter, just that they know are going to lose, like the Libertarians and a lot of other third parties do. Is that still basically the same? Like they plan on kind of maybe starting with the local, like working their way upward?
Yeah. I as far as I understand from what I've heard in the discussions and in some fledgling writings is I think the party starts where the party has its focus, and that's locally. And you just figure when it comes to the petition process and some of those formalities and legalities and machinations, it just lends itself to being a classic grassroots type of thing, and again, because if you think about too, just the, again, here I go again, the organic nature of how we're starting this, where literally, again, a guy like me just goes online and says, yes, I'm in. And if I got a handful of people together And that's all anybody has to do is visit federalistpartyofamerica.org, get a buddy, get a couple of girlfriends, get a bunch of people, and even if it's just a matter of
a
couple of girlfriends,
these Mormon activists that have joined us now.
Why not bring your sister wives? Bring your sister wives.
I'm allowed to make that joke, people.
And look, in the great tradition of how this country was founded, why not meet in a tavern? Why not meet in a pub? And really get a grassroots feel to what you're doing. Have this conversation over a few pints and hash it out. Read a few of the Federalist Papers. See what this is about, and have discussions, and it can be like any other political movement. It can really catch fire, and that's what it's all about. So it's very user friendly. It's very, very, very user friendly.
What do you see are the big benchmarks? So where's the Federalist Party a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now?
Ruling the world? No,
hey, I didn't care with that. One government's fine if it's the Constitution.
Look, I tell you, I would hope some level of participation, at least with a voice at the table. At least with some presence on panels and and in the mainstream of the media. To see a representative of the Federalist Party of America get a nice spot at the next CPAC, or the next Democratic National Convention, something like that, because quite frankly, we have to, because what's going to really just absolutely kill this country is this debt. This week, $21 trillion, a $21 trillion national debt. It's untenable, and I mean, oh my God, untenable is half a word when it comes to what this means. And again, everybody can see how it's running away. All the special interests. I mean, oh my God. And plus, you have people are starting to it's starting to resonate exactly. And Trump is helping. Trump is helping, shine a light on just how dysfunctional and out of touch and unnecessary so many aspects of Washington are. A bunch of, again, as we started to talk about early on, you get people up there. To all of them, I had one experience. Here you go. One time I was about to maybe work with a blue dog Democrat. Okay, a guy out of the South, a conservative Democrat. I was going to do some work with him, and I'm in his office on Capitol Hill, and he starts by breaking the rule right away. Right away, we go into his office. He had a grand, fabulous office. Opens the window and starts smoking a cigarette. And I was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And he starts talking about what we're gonna do tonight, and where we're gonna go, and who we're gonna party with, and this and that, and that. And
sounds like a very controlling first date.
Yeah. And he says, he calls in one of his interns, secretary, staffer, I don't know, and says, "Hey, get the card and go and get like." He says, "What do you drink? Diet Coke? Anything? You want a beer? You want this?" Go run around the corner, and it was the card he was talking about was the campaign card. It was literally the debit card. And for his campaign money that he could apparently use for this sort of thing. And it became very apparent to me that it's all funny money. That cliche about other people's money could not be more accurate. They get there to Washington, and whether it's, excuse me, I'm getting dry here. Whether it's, taxes, taxing huge amounts to fund insane federal programs, or to bring back insane federal grants, which really are the huge root of the problem. Also, is the pork that these guys, men and women, are able to bring home to their districts, these earmarks. But also just the dollars and the cents. They figure we can blow through a few grand here and there, and then we'll make it the first barbecue we have, the first fundraiser, the first wine and cheese we do back in the district. It's all funny money. It's all other people's money, and none of them care. And so, you know, there's just this willy-nilly aspect, and you combine a complete lack of respect and a complete lack of decorum when it comes to other people's hard-earned money. When you combine that with a laissez-faire attitude, with a do no harm, don't rock the boat, don't get in the way, read the polls, which way is the wind blowing, go up, vote, and get the hell out of Dodge. It's a recipe for disaster. And for the first time in a long time, both sides are like just so unbelievably frustrated with the dysfunction of Washington, you know, that people are starting to look around. And I think the Federalist Party of America is coming in at literally exactly the right time to attract any and all.
Well, I think you know, an interesting point that you kind of touch on is during the election, in 2016, third parties were anathema. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you told somebody you weren't voting for Trump or Hillary, they're like, well, you're voting for the other guy. You know, vote for third parties and vote for Hillary. You know, vote for third parties and vote for Trump. Like, that was just not what you did. You were cast out. You were a leper.
we had
we had that experience quite often. And what I find interesting now is, and you kind of touched on this, is Trump is ironically really shedding a light, and in a way, he is really creating an environment where a third party is absolutely viable. And not because of anything he's done per se, but just the way the Republicans and the Democrats both try to undermine him, I think. So the Trump supporters are seeing that and going, what the heck, guys? I didn't vote for you to undermine your own guy. I voted for you to help him build a wall and make America great again and drain the swamp. And you're not doing that. And the people that don't like Trump are saying, you know, the people that don't like Trump are saying their party and absolutely fail at undermining him. They're like, guys, you need to do a better job. We hate you. So nobody's really happy with the two parties.
And he ran like a third party. He ran like he was like Gary Johnson with dough, you know. I mean, honestly,
and half a cent and half a brain.
Half a brain, exactly. You know, and wore actual shoes. You know,
Birkenstocks don't count.
No, not. You know, like I mean, but Trump really had, you know, when you think about it, he was a third party, you know, a guy who's a Democratic fundraiser who was pro-choice his whole life here in New York, you know, hanging around, equal opportunity, going to Hillary's wedding, Hillary's going to his wedding, and, you know, there he is palling around. He's been friends with Al Sharpton for 30 years. Donald Trump is nobody's, you know, etched in stone conservative Republican.
I think that was Ted Cruz's biggest mistake when the media pushed on him and said, you know, what do you think about Trump's comments on Mexico and immigrants and isn't that really horrible? Instead of saying, oh no, Trump is wonderful, Ted Cruz should have said, well, what do you expect from a New York liberal? Right. Would have killed two birds with one stone right then and there. Just like what?
2020 hindsight, man. I think he looks back at that moment like 1,000 times. He goes, you know, it's like you know, he could have.
I love that photo of him after he dropped out of the race, and you see him on the phone, and he's got that look like, you know, that frowning look like he just knew that he was just completely owned.
Yep.
But like the other thing was just, you know, and I might as well add that, you know, my mom would love a lot of the stuff you're saying, because she's the one, she always is talking about how, you know, that working in government is just being part of a club. It's really not, nobody cares about whose money they're spending or for what. You know, it becomes something you feel entitled to.
Yeah.
But
and they don't, and how much can they care? I mean, also, you know, bring this down to like a real human level. I mean, this, and I really, really mean this. And I am a guy who I write speeches. I am a a pundit. I am, I am an advocate. I'm a flack. I go and face the press and advocate for my guy or the woman that I'm working for at the time. All that being said, think about the human aspect of this. And by the way, I've never worked for anybody really up at the levels that we're talking about here. I have really the vast majority of my work has been with locals and maybe, at the state level as well. But yeah, and I'm currently, like I said, working with a New York State senator. And we just had a couple of nor'easters roll through here where we had people, myself included, out of power for literally days on end in the middle of a cold snap. This guy I'm working for, he was shacking up with his mom. He had to bring his family to his mom's house because he was out of power. This guy was never home, A, because what's the point of going home? It was cold. But B, I mean, here's a guy, local district senator, out and about, stopping at each and every shelter, talking to all the old ladies and talking to all the fellas and stopping and bringing coffee to the guys on the power lines and talking to the supervisors. Think about just at the federal level, they don't know and they don't care. They don't care. And it starts with they don't know. There's and the Congress people who are from these larger local districts, they're part of this. Like I said before, there's part of this insanity where they get there and it's about the cocktail parties and the power and the butt kissing.
And I might add, you mentioned that Trump is shedding a light on this, and I love the fact that he does it both on purpose and completely by accident. He did it on purpose in one way, but he also did it by accident in the sense that how many people has he shuffled through his cabinet in the last year? It hasn't affected anything. Nothing happened. But look at what he did on purpose. The one where he said, I don't care if we get a government shutdown. In fact, I want one. Let's have a shutdown. Why? Because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it really affects nothing. And the thing is, the average person really does not ever touch the federal government directly. They're affected by it to a degree, but usually, but they can't affect it. That's the thing. It can affect them to a great degree, right, but they can't affect it. And so people, that's why we're fighting over the White House all the time. But the thing is that, there's just, but that's just it. It's just but to the point that things can majorly change in the federal government in DC and nothing happens. Nobody feels it because it doesn't. That's how far away it is. That's how far away it is. It's so far. No. Yeah. You never even see the effects until way down the road. Well, people aren't realizing you're fighting for, we want to feed the poor in 5 years. Yeah.
Again, starting now.
I mean, I bring it back to to my guy Rob Astorino here in Westchester. Prior to and I'll make this brief and because, but I think it's a hell of a point. You talk about how they're so far away and how the people have a hard time, making any change, and yet they can be affected by Washington, but it's hard to affect Washington. Well, our guy Rob Astorino, when he came into office 8 years ago, he had won here. And by the way, Westchester County is a 2.2 to 1 Democrat to Republican county. And Rob won election, and then he won re-election by 13 points in a deep blue county. And what he inherited, one of the things he inherited was a consent agreement, a consent decree with the federal government, with HUD, with the Housing and Urban Development, where during his predecessor's term, the federal government, Obama's HUD, said that Westchester had discriminatory zoning, that somehow zoning for what kind of buildings you can build in any given neighborhood, somehow Westchester's zoning was discriminatory, and that was fine and that worked because Westchester was a racist, discriminatory county, none of which was true. But an agreement was struck. And basically, really, just to boil it down and move on, it took a guy like Rob Astorino to stand up and explain to the people what this overreaching federal government was trying to do. They were trying to come in from Washington and change the local zoning and determine what kind of buildings could go where. And that, I mean, that could mean anything from whatever kind of affordable housing, that could have meant for lack of a better term, a skyscraper, a 3 or 4 or 6 story multifamily apartment building in the middle of, a suburban enclave of, quarter acre lots. And it took an 8-year fight of a guy planting his flag and saying absolutely not. And at any given point, it all could have gone away. And all he had to do was sign a piece of paper that said, yeah, all right, we're racist, it's discriminatory, and all right, there you go. But he never did. And eventually he prevailed, Westchester prevailed. But the reason that the federal government, the reason that HUD had such a vice grip and has such a vice grip around the country is block grants. It's block grants that local governments find themselves beholden to. And if Rob Astorino had a message for any fellow local government people, it was don't take the money. Do not get into that system. Don't get into that revolving door. Federal government comes knocking and says, hey, we got some dough. And all you got to do is, just tick a couple of boxes, just check some boxes along the way and just kind of do us a favor and do what we say. Don't take the money. Don't. So again, so perfect to your point. That's what happens is the federal government can reach in, but it's so hard to knock them down. And again, best way to do it is to promote local government. And, along the way, you got to knock down the size and scope of the federal government. We have to. This $21 trillion debt's going to kill us regardless. So, but that's what the Federalist Party of America is all about. It's all about saying no to an encroaching government from Washington that thinks it knows your neck of the woods.
Amen. Well, it sounds like you guys got your work cut out for you, but I got to say, I'm really impressed with what we've seen working with the Federalist Party of America. You guys, the party has a lot of energy, a lot of loyalty, like you mentioned earlier in the show. For those of you watching the show, I definitely highly, highly, highly recommend you follow TJ's advice and shoot that text. Where can they text again?
They can text to 53445. 53445. You text one word, Fed Party to 53445, and you answer that one text that comes back, yes or no. Do you want updates? And you'll get standard messaging fees apply. And you'll get updates anytime something new happens. Anytime there's an update to our website, which is federalistpartyofamerica.org. And they
can follow them on Twitter as well.
Yes,
correct?
Yes. At real Fed Party. And also take a look at our Chairman Pro Tem, Bill O'Reilly, William F.B. O'Reilly. He comes from a phenomenal lineage, a storied family. His uncles have been at the forefront of conservative thinking for years and years and years. Bill is named for his grandfather, William F. Buckley O'Reilly, which is also who William F. Buckley was named for. Bill's uncle is William F. Buckley of firing line fame and of, just being a great conservative. And Senator James Buckley, who was the senator from New York in the Conservative Party. A few decades ago, and is a brilliant thinker in his own right, and a lot of his thinking and a lot of his writing has a lot to do with the direction of the Federalist Party of America. One major component is knocking back the concept of these Congress members having access to these and the ability to distribute these federal grants that really end up being just the bane of all of our existences. Anyway, James Buckley, the senator, went on to be to head Radio Free Europe, as well as became a federal judge, and I believe the Second Circuit out of Washington, D.C. Anyway, that's Bill's lineage. So anybody who's a fan of anything and everything Buckley, that's what Bill O'Reilly's DNA has in it. And he's a hell of a thinker himself. You can follow Bill. He's at WFBOR, at WFBOR on Twitter. Follow him. He's also a columnist for Newsday. He's a brilliant guy and a good soul. And that's what everybody, I'll wrap with this. Forgive me for this little ending diatribe here, this closing soliloquy. But that's something else I found to be the people. You mentioned energy. The people in the party have got such fabulous energy, and they've got such a conviction, and it's all coming from a good place. This is all a positive energy. That's the thing. It's not so, because it's not anti-Washington, it's pro-local. You know what it feels like when you have in-depth discussions with some of the people within the party? You get the feeling that this whole thing is about loving your neighbor. It's about love thy neighbor. You know, we're supposed to live by the golden rule, do unto others. Well, you know what? Love thy neighbor is very similar. Like I said, when you're pondering what the heck our country's going to do next, maybe instead of starting by looking at the front page of the New York Times, like I have to for a living, look out when you have your coffee.
You have to do that.
It's so tough, guys. Jesus H. Christ, it's so difficult. But look out, have your coffee in the morning and look out your window and look at your backyard, or look out the door, look out the window at the next apartment building next to you. And if you don't see anything interesting happening, take a moment and go, what is going to happen that's going to affect that guy's life and that family's life and this over here? And, and as you drive around your town and you look at the churches and the schools and the local town hall, man, that cliche, all politics is local. Man, oh man, imagine if all politics really were local. How much of a control you can have, how much of a say you can have. You could be a part of it. And you can be a part of the Federalist Party of America. That's the thing. You call up, rather you text that 53445 Fed Party. You go to federalistpartyofamerica.org and you tick a couple of boxes and say, yeah, I'm in, and you're in a movement. Boom, you're in a movement. It's like I started to say, forgive me, these people are all positive minded. This isn't so much anti-Washington as much as it is pro-local. It's pro-America. It's pro-founding of America. I mean, think about one of the first seminal moments of American history when, here these guys wanted to make Washington the king. And he said, I'm nobody's king. I'm good. I'm good being president. Okay. I'll be good.
It was only for one term.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, that's what this is all about. This is about the earliest stages of the greatest nation in the world. And, this fabulous, capitalist experiment that has just been so phenomenal. It was born so perfectly and still with glorious flaws. We can get back there, and these are positive people to be involved with. They're not dowdy Republicans and judgmental, smug leftists. These are good, optimistic, forward-thinking, they're thinking up, and it's positive. And I need that in my life. I personally, that's the other draw, I think, too, is politics is so inherently, unbelievably negative right now. Boy, this Federalist Party of America is just such a breath of fresh air. It's slightly addictive in that sense. It's all positive.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. It seems that energy has rubbed off on you. So
Sorry.
That's we wore the poor man out.
I'm a very old man. You forgive me.
We'll post your @ on Twitter if you want people to follow you on Twitter. Make sure
Please, yes. Thank you.
If this is the first time watching the show, guys, make sure you follow @ornery_opinions. Follow John @Kamuri Hideyoko. I'll write that out. Don't ask me to spell it. And TJ, if you're willing, we would love to have you back, because you touched on some things that I think are at the forefront of Americans' minds, like term limits. That's something I really have kind of dived into.
You guys have some interesting thoughts on that. You guys are definitely not exactly where maybe anybody who's visiting you for the first time, you guys aren't exactly where people might necessarily think you are. That was actually one of the interesting things I learned about you. You have some really unique thoughts that I think are really constructive and and they're tough to argue with. You make some really good damn points about term limits.
Well, I appreciate that. That's high praise coming from you. So we would love to have you back on, maybe go into depth with some of those ideas, maybe talk about some other things like gerrymandering, term limits, you know, these big issue things that people say we need to change these. And maybe
Certainly.
we do. Maybe we do. Maybe we can come up with some better ideas, things that will actually work and do the things that people say they want to accomplish. I'm really excited to have. I'm really glad you came on. John and I can't thank you guys enough. Guys, I actually really believe in what the Federalist Party of America stands for. John and I joke around all the time. If we hadn't met the Federalist Party of America, John and I were going to start our own Federalist Party of America. Like, it was complete coincidence that we bumped into the people that had the same name, same platform, same ideas. Like, these are our principles, and that's why we're excited to have TJ on the show, and we're going to have him back again. So make sure you follow us. Stay tuned. Because I do think that, you know, America is at a tipping point, and it's a good one. It's a positive. We are at the edge of a golden age. I think if we can just get enough Americans to get involved, and that's really what this is about. You have to get involved. You cannot delegate your power, your authority to someone 1,000 miles away, 2,000 miles away, 3,000 miles away, depending on where you live, Washington, D.C. It has to start here, in your home, in your community. So thanks again, TJ.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys are following him, us, the Real Fed Party, and we will see you guys next week. You have a wonderful week. Good night.